Hello, everyone. My name is Craig Walden from Out Construction. I am the CFO. And so IT and risk management is under my umbrella. So we're thankful to have Grit and VTC and be able to partner to be able to host this for everybody. We're a construction management company, founded in 1908, where IT was a little bit different back then than it is today. And, we have about 100 employees. Half of them are probably in the office, in and out to the field. Then we have another half, about 50, are full-time in the field. So kind of running that dynamic when it comes to, protecting the computers, protecting our servers and stuff of that nature. I'll share with you, back in January of 2020, we did have a cybersecurity event here. I think it took a few years off my life, but luckily we were able to, and it was not with Grit, we weren't partnered with them at the time, but, it took a little bit to get the data back. We had the backups, but it was a wake-up call for me, making sure, as a CFO, we're spending money in the proper place and be effective when it comes to controls. And we all know the number one thing is to educate employees, which we try to do with Greg, our IT manager, all the time. I've been known to click on links and emails because they get busy and with construction, you have a lot going on and a small window and, we've got generational gaps of older generation and myself. I didn't have a computer until I was in the 11th grade. So now the younger generation, they're like, this is no big deal. We're used to this. So it's trying to educate everybody and also have the proper controls in place to try and mitigate anything. So, it's important for us to keep learning. It's ongoing, keep training. So, we're excited for this event and try to learn something as hackers get better at it every day and just trying to stay up on all of that. So thank you for coming and we'll look forward to the seminar.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you guys for coming out. My name is Matt Moline. I head up the sales and marketing for Grit Technologies. So starting today, we're obviously here to discuss a growing challenge, and obviously it's cybersecurity. We've got representatives here today from the Michigan State Police. Jim Hoffman, one of our engineers over at Grit Technologies, Drew from Arctic Wolf, and Brian over at VTC Insurance. So obviously cyber attacks, we know that this is an ongoing concern and obviously growing concern. A couple quick statistics I'll share just from, in our backyard. Just in the last 3 years alone, we've seen that nearly every small business out there has seen some form of attack, whether it be through phishing, a breach of some type, or even they're infected with ransomware. The point tonight is really not just to highlight the risks. We really want to talk about just finding solutions together. So us here at Grit, we decided that, hey, let's get the majority of the parties that are usually involved in these types of scenarios together and give you guys a panel to where not only are we going to share information just on the latest from each category here, but give you guys a chance to ask questions to the appropriate people. Ultimately, the whole point here tonight, folks, is that this is for you. So the way things are going to go today is each panelist here, they're going to give a quick 5 to 8 minute presentation on just some of the highlights of each of their verticals. After that, we have some questions already pre-made that we've already discussed that are just important, the common questions that they're typically seeing. We're going to go through those, and then we're going to open up the floor to you guys to really kind of start hammering through and, go through those questions. So starting tonight, I'd like to open the floor over head this over to from the Michigan State Police. Kyle, I'll hand it over to you.
All right. I'm going to stand up for this because I'm going to have to read some of my own slides here. But I'm Detective Trooper MC3. And so the MC3, it's a part of the Michigan State Police Cyber Section. There's two different sides of the house. We have the Computer Crimes Unit. They basically do all the forensics for any police agency in Michigan that seizes electronic evidence. And they also have the ICAC Task Force, which is the Internet Crimes Against Children. I am on the MC3 side of the house, which we focus on network intrusions. So what we do, network intrusion investigations and forensics. We do dark web investigations. We have a dedicated trooper assigned to Homeland Security investigations, and she does illicit buys on the dark web. We do cybersecurity. We do cybersecurity assessments. So we just switched over to CISA's CSET tool. We'll come out and sit down 1 to 2 hours, go through some questions and answers, and it will give you a nice report on what you're doing that's good and what you can do better. We do threat analysis and info sharing. So we will try to gather up any intel we can from across the U.S. and share it out to the people on a mailing list. I do have information if you want to get on that later. And then we also do the training and outreach for public and private sector. So the MC3 will take your case if the victim is a business, a government entity, or critical infrastructure, and there was likely a network intrusion. We can't take every single case when it comes down to like individuals, because we get a lot of people saying my phone's hacked, my computer's hacked, everything's hacked. We have 3 people on our team that are enlisted. We can't handle that. So for those cases, we have them report it locally. And if they deem that it's necessary to seize devices, we'll take them and do a forensic review of them. We also look for if the victim lost money or faced a hardship due to the incident. And again, individuals are referred to local law enforcement. So the current trends that we're looking at are ransomware, business email compromises, and then there's other types of malware like payroll scams, gift card scams. Those are kind of the lower level ones. And basically the idea of these is to lead to fraud and theft. Most of it comes down to monetary, but sometimes it's for like intellectual property or data or information. I will also share we have been inundated with emails of just individuals being targeted on a personal level. They're getting emails with street view photos of their house saying, hey, I know your browser history. I know what you've been doing. I know your browser history. If you don't give us 2,000 Bitcoin, I'm going to send this to all your contacts. So that is fake. Don't fall for it. We're getting at least 5 or 10 emails a day on that are coming to us. But again, it's all just a money grab. So the biggest way is through phishing. So overall, you click 1 in 20 users will click on the phishing link. And it provides results fast. 25% of link clicks happen within the first 10 minutes, 50 within the first hour, and 90 within the first 24 hours. And as you see, the 5 most targeted industries are real estate, construction, government, insurance, and finance. Because that's where all the big money is and the transactions that they can jump in between and try to redirect it to a bank account. So here's contact information if you want to take a picture of it. Our phone number, 877-MY-CYBER. Our email address is mc3@michigan.gov. If you want to be put on a mailing list to get information from us, you can just send us an email there and let us know. If you become a victim, you can also shoot us an email there as well. Depending on what the incident is, Depending on what the incident is, we may or may not respond in person. Because we're dealing with businesses, a lot of them have their own like internal IT teams, and we can send them a program remotely just to run to capture RAM or whatever we need. And that's especially happens because a lot of these things happen on Friday at 4 o'clock at night, and we're not driving to the UP. So the other thing we would highly encourage is report it to the FBI at ic3.gov. That stands for the Internet Crime Complaint Center. And that basically aggregates all the stats across the U.S. instead of just Michigan. And we do have the ability to search through those. And I highly encourage you to report that because we have been investigating one and been able to tie it to multiple other instances of the same thing happening. Thanks. All right. So this is the stuff I'm going to have to read verbatim. So we are exempt from FOIA. That's the Freedom of Information Act. And so we go by the definitions: cybersecurity assessment, cybersecurity incident, cybersecurity plan, cybersecurity vulnerability. So the exemptions, any information that would identify or provide a means of identifying a person that may, as a result of disclosure of the information, become a victim of a cybersecurity incident, or that would disclose a person's cybersecurity plans or cybersecurity related practices, procedures, methods, results, organizational information system, infrastructure, hardware, or software. It's a mouthful, but that is Michigan law, and that is basically to prevent, because if we take a report on somebody and somebody FOIAs that, we don't want them to have all that information because that could lead to re-victimization. And that's one of the main reasons that people don't want to report their cyber crimes to us. But we are exempt from FOIA, so if they can FOIA it, but they're going to get a page with nothing but black ink on it that they're not going to be able to read. And then here is another important part of it. I know the insurance guys were talking about this earlier. Monetary loss. This is more for like a disgruntled employee, somebody we're actually going to be able to arrest, not as far as like international ransomware groups. But monetary loss, you can go after them in court, would be is the aggregate amount of any direct or indirect loss incurred by a victim or group of victims, including but not limited to the value of any money, property, services lost, stolen, or rendered unrecoverable by the offense, or any expenditure incurred by the victim group or group of victims to verify a computer program, computer system, computer network was not altered, acquired, damaged, deleted, disrupted, or destroyed by the access. The direct or indirect loss incurred in separate incidents pursuant to a scheme or course of conduct within any 12-month period may be aggregated to determine the total value of the loss involved in the violation of this act. So trying to recover from these things can get expensive real fast. And that's where all of this is recoverable if it is at least someone we can get our hands on and prosecute within the U.S. So other considerations, cyber insurance, if you have a cyber incident, cyber insurance, third-party forensic response, and legal firm. As soon as you enact your cyber insurance, they're going to want to bring in a third-party forensics and legal counsel. Typically when that happens, we get shoved out the door. Don't know why, but that's usually what happens. Any info reported to the MC3 related to a cybersecurity is exempt from FOIA. So if you think of us, we're like the police on the streets. If we go to a car crash, we're not there to put your car on a flatbed and then take it out and fix it. We can't go to these cybersecurity incidents, get our hands on the keyboards and solve the problems and get you back up and running. We're there to gather evidence of the crime that took place. So we can't do any of that stuff or solve your problems for you. The only caveat to that is if it is critical infrastructure or government. In that case, we have a resource called the MyC3, which is the Michigan Cyber Civilian Corps. It's basically a National Guard of nerds. They're all computer guys, and they all sign like disclosure agreements and all that stuff. And so if it's critical infrastructure or something we need to get back fast because it could result in loss of life, we can bring them in and get their hands on the keyboards. But that's the only caveat to that. But they're all basically on standby. And other than that, we can and will monitor for data. We check the dark web almost every day, and we check for anything related to Michigan. And a lot of times we can see, hey, this ransomware group is providing proofs online of this company in Michigan. We can reach out to them. Hey, do you know they have this data? They're about to dump it. Next. So again, some resources. I think he put them on a slide later.
Yeah, at the end of the presentation, we'll have a resources link. You guys will have all that. They'll take you to a landing page with all the panelist information, so you guys can capture that. So the resources on that, our website, you can get on the distribution list at mc3@michigan.gov. Just shoot us an email. We put out like situational awareness messages, publications, notifications of vulnerabilities. And then again, we do, if you want a cybersecurity awareness training or cybersecurity assessment, shoot us an email. We try not to inundate you with emails just because it's annoying. We usually send a cyber news twice a month. And then if there's some significant vulnerability, we'll shoot information out on that. So again, security recommendations, use a strong, unique password on all your accounts. I know it's hard to remember, but don't be reusing passwords. We recommend 16 characters or longer. Enable multi-factor authentication or two-factor anywhere you can. On a personal level, check your credit report regularly. And
you can go to the 3 credit bureaus and lock your credit score so people can't be taking credit cards, things out in your name. That's free. It's annoying if you want to get your own loan because you have to go unlock them, then lock them back up. Be suspicious of anyone sending urgent requests in mail, and verify anything suspicious with the sender using a known method. So if you get an email, hey, we want to change our bank account's being audited, we want to change our payment method to this bank, don't call the number in that email, because if the bad guy made that email, he's putting his own number in. So call a phone number that you know is the person you want to talk to. So here is, I'm going to jump into an example of a business email compromise. This is one we did. It was between a construction company and a K through 12 school. So what this was, so this email right here is the bad actor sending an email asking for the procedure to enroll their future payments in ACH for vendors. And if you look up here, this came from a one-off typo squatted domain. So what they did is they registered a domain. They actually had the construction company, but it's whitewashed. So say the real address was constructioncompany.com. They just took out the M and registered the domain constructioncompany.co. So unless you're paying close attention to it, you're not going to know. And that's how they were able to get this. And again, if you see the word kindly in the email, that should be raising red flags immediately. All right, so this was, again, they're asking more questions, trying to get the new vendor set up to get the ACH. Again, kindly notify if there's any changes to be made, awaiting your reply. So they try to put, I guess, set the message up like they're trying to get you to hurry up to go through it, so they think it's urgent. So that's one thing to look for. Response from the victim: yes, construction company's an existing vendor. We have received the form, modified the vendor record for ACH payment information. We should be all set. So they asked for the payment to be redirected. They confirmed it's redirected. So obviously next, when's our next payment coming? Do they have a date or anything? No current invoices, and then they're asking when they would have been issued. And from there, it was basically silence. So if you look at this, the date the ACH was redirected was September of 2018. Payments didn't go out until July of 2019, and nobody noticed. And these two payments totaled over $320,000. We reached out to the FBI, and they were able to recover $170. So it's very odd because $170, what they recovered was the exact amount of the first payment that went in June. The second payment of July went to the same bank account. The first payment was still there, second payment was gone. No idea what took place there. It's very weird, but they were able to at least get $170,000 back. And again, contact info if you want to take a picture of it.
Yep. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
This is happening with cost.
Yeah.
Very large on-trusts.
Yeah. We are nerds. We play with like voice changers and stuff. And if you get someone's just like a voicemail from them, you can put that recording into a voice changer and make it say what you want to say in their voice. Depending on how you get payments, it might be wise to highlight in a bill or a contract that, hey, we only want payment via check. This will not be changed, just to kind of avoid this, because I mean, construction companies are one of the top 5 targeted industries.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move over to Grit. So Jim, you have the floor, buddy.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Jim. I've been with Grid Technologies. Been there since 2018, 6 years now. And we'll get started here. Grit's been around since 2008, and we have 43 employees, location in Grand Rapids and Clinton Township. I'm in the Clinton Township office. Paul is in our Grand Rapids office. He's here tonight as well. We serve about 195 companies and about 4,000 endpoints currently. And some of our clients are actually here tonight. What we like to do is go with a proactive defense against cybersecurity. Make sure that you have implemented firewalls. We've implemented EDR solutions, antivirus, a layered approach, things of that nature. Make sure you're doing patch and security monitoring, which we have implemented in our RMM, and continually monitor those things. Some of the other things you want to think about is regulatory compliance, especially in the financial industries. Insurance may have some compliance requirements as well, and such. One of the things that the MSP talked about was training and awareness, and we're going to definitely talk about that tonight. Making sure that your employees are aware and ongoing training, so they don't click on those links that everybody likes to send out, and such. We have a platform that we utilize to actually train in the cybersecurity realm, and we'll actually send out test phishing emails to those partners and such to see who's clicking on that, who needs more training, and such. Incident response and recovery, make sure you have a developed incident response plan and business continuity plan. One of the things Grit can do for you is assist you with actually creating those documents. Here's actually a simulated phishing email that went out to one of Grit's employees from our cybersecurity training platform. You can tell that right off the bat, hey, I'm writing to inform you that a breach recently in August of 24, your name was on it, and such. Are you able to scroll down on that? Okay. At the bottom of this, there was a link at the bottom that said, hey, click here to go take a look at what information was breached and leaked, and what things you need to do to take care of it. It wasn't a real email. They would have taken you out to a threat actor's website, asked you for information, and then they would have pretty much probably tried to steal your identity at that point. Here's another one that went out. Hey, here, submit your timesheet, report the user, click here to submit it. Again, it would probably have taken you out to a Microsoft 365 login page, enter your credential. Now they've got your credential to 365, and that's how you breach business email compromises. Same with this one here. Obviously, they've taken and put the Microsoft logo directly on it, made it look like it came from Microsoft. Alerts-Microsoft.com obviously is not Microsoft. But scan this QR code, take you out to wherever. If you do that on your mobile device, and that's the website behind it could be very malicious, they could now have compromised your mobile device as well. And then again, Chase, hey, we got important information about your update. Click the update, go out here, enter your information for Chase Bank. Now they have the information to go log into your bank account. Backups and disaster recovery. All roads lead to backup. It's not a thing of if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. When are you going to actually have a problem? When is somebody actually going to click a link, put their email address out there, and have a compromise? Having the backups, you can recover back. I'm trying to think of what I can say here. In the event that you have something where data is lost, you're going to need that backup. You need your backups to be ransomware protected, on-site, off-site. Make sure that they're immutable. You can't change them. Disaster recovery plans, again, make sure that you have a disaster recovery plan in the event that something happens, and test those backups regularly. Make sure that you can restore from them, because if you're not testing them and you don't know that you can restore from them in the event of a breach or something, your backups may not help you. Cost versus security balance. This is a touchy subject. Small businesses may not have the monetary money to actually put in a full security stack in place to make sure that they're fully covered. So they may have to do a risk assessment, find out what portions of their security stack they can actually implement and move forward with. Weigh in the cost of those against potential losses and breaches. Make sure you do your main things: on passwords, multi-factor authentication on things, and again, backups. Those are your three main things, in my opinion, that you should definitely put most of the money towards if you're not able to do the full stack. So starting the cybersecurity journey, initial assessment, something they talked about earlier. Identify your key vulnerabilities, talk with your MSP or your IT department, find out what those vulnerabilities could be, find out what your security posture is. Build the strategy, develop your clear and actionable cybersecurity plan. tailor it to your needs, and ongoing education. Make sure that your employees are being trained and retrained, annually, biannually, to make sure that they're situationally aware on what the cybersecurity posture is and the threats that are actually coming out there.
Thank you, Jim. All right, we'll hand it over to Drew from Arctic Wolf.
Alrighty, thank you everybody. It's great to be here. Drew Conway with Arctic Wolf. I'm a partner development rep for them. So I really work with our channel partners, help them understand really our service offerings and then how they can position that with their customers to ultimately keep them more secure and be that trusted security advisor for them. So this is really a good picture of just what the security landscape has looked like for consumers and the options that they've had and the steps they've needed to take. So really starting all the way on the left, just the basic things like patching and backups, really getting those things in place and checking off some of the main things. But as we go to the right here, again, security has been a changing landscape. So firewalls were something that, okay, this is just the next thing that we need to do to ensure that our business is staying secure. And that continued to go further and further with EDR, and now it's MDR, XDR, whatever you want to call it, it's there. So then you get to Arctic Wolf, and really with Arctic Wolf, you're getting a broad visibility of your entire environment. You're not just going to be protecting an endpoint or just your firewalls and monitoring those. You want a holistic view of your environment. So where Arctic Wolf comes in is we're going to be gathering all the information from those endpoint tools, cloud tools, network tools, correlating that into our platform. And then we have all of the research and development teams working on that. So that will create efficiencies on our end to send up those flags and alert on certain things. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like as we move on here. So really the problems we solve in a huge market that we address is smaller organizations. The reason that is because they don't have the expertise to security individuals. And that's a big piece of why Arctic Wolf is around. So if you look in any state in the country, there is going to be thousands of jobs that are open for security individuals. The lack of talent that we have, it's a problem that every company is going to run into. So what Arctic Wolf does is we assign a concierge security team, and the way it works with Grit is they work directly with Grit. So when they see something with customer A that is a Grit and Arctic Wolf customer, they can tell Grit exactly what they need to be doing, and then they can take those actions on behalf of the customer and make sure that environment is secure. So these experts are really working with Grit side by side, and it's their job to understand the customer's environment so they know what is most important to be looking out for. Certain verticals will have different attacks more common. So really that security expert is an additional resource assigned to that account, so they are watching. And then we have the teams in the back end who are watching 24/7. So we have the technology that gets us to the high efficiencies of not digging into every single alert that we're getting. There just simply wouldn't be time. But we do get it down to a number where our teams can dig into every single alert that's going on to the environment and then provide guided remediation in our partnership with Grit to them, so then they can take action and really reduce the likelihood and then the impact of an incident on that company. And then this one is actually a build. I'm sorry about that. So this is really this highlights and pictures exactly what I was just saying. So you have all of these different tools within the environment, and those will be feeding into the Arctic Wolf platform. There's a lot goes into it on the back end, and I'm not the guy to ask on the technology, but we're going to be alerting to all those things from the platform. And then again, with our concierge delivery model and that service approach that we have, we want to deliver the outcomes with Grit to ultimately make sure that the customer feels like they're secure. They know that they can sleep better at night. They can go take a vacation and deliver the outcomes that they're looking for when they're going for a security vendor. We want somebody who is going to keep us secure, but also just not sending more alerts our way and adding more onto our plate. We need more vendors and security to take things off the plate instead of just, it is great to have the tools in place, but if we don't have the teams to manage it, then they can really only do so much good. So that's where Arctic Wolf and Grit come in. Appreciate everybody's time tonight.
Thank you very much, Drew. Now we'll have Brian over at VTC to tell us about the insights in insurance.
Sure, it's me.
Sure. So they always save insurance for last. It's the other Greek language. The first is IT, and I'll talk a little bit about insurance here. So VTC, I'm Brian Klein. I'm the COO. Been with the firm about 10 years and was with Hartford for 20 years prior to that. So we've been in business since 1957. Started as a surety firm, actually, and has grown quite significantly. We're probably one or two of the largest independent agencies in the state of Michigan, depending on how you get measured. We have about 140 some employees based here in Troy. We're famous, I guess, for construction. That's what our lead is. However, we do insurance for manufacturing, transportation, nonprofits, and a slew of other industries. And then we probably have access, due to our size, that we can access probably about 90% of the available markets, either by direct or through intermediaries. So really able to provide a solution if you have a need. So insurance, everybody thinks about the policy and how much it's going to cost, and nobody likes buying it. But it's more than that. I think once you get to the insurance policy where the premium is, but we really talk about risk management. And so these are just some of the things that we do, but it's really about, and these gentlemen here talked a little bit about kind of what do you got to do to prep, how do you prevent a loss, right? How do you keep yourself safe? And that's what insurance is. Nobody likes to have a claim. And, the insurance companies definitely don't like paying a claim. So what can we do to mitigate that risk, right? That's the real name of the game. And so cyber is relatively new in the insurance industry. The first policy allegedly was sold by AIG back in 1997. It was an internet liability policy. I think Al Gore probably took that one out himself. But there's not a lot of data in the cyber market, okay? It's not been around that long. You think about workers' compensation. Workers' compensation probably started providing right after you guys were founded. That's when workers' comp started. So there's a lot of data there, right? Well, cyber, there really isn't. And you also got to take into account that cyber changes. Technology is so rapidly changed. It's the most rapid type of thing we have to deal with as a society that changes. And so for the insurance industry, it's really tough to keep up. So what I want to show you here is just what's been happening, right? Matt had asked me, hey, what's happened over the last couple of years or so forth? And when you look at here, really, you can ask Justin, he's from VTC. It was hard to sell this back in the early 2000s. Nobody wanted to buy it. I'm never going to have a loss. What does that mean? Well, it's gained some traction. And 2020, you'll start to see it ramp up. Well, guess what happened in 2020? It was COVID. Well, guess what happened in COVID? Everybody said, hey, you got to get out of the office, take your computer equipment with you. People ripped it off their desk, really not paying attention to the security controls potentially, and they're just hooking it up. Plus, you had people working out of their homes. Guess what? Bad actors like that. And so what they were doing is starting to prey on that. And so what you saw is the real driver here wasn't necessarily liability, like third-party stuff. A lot of it was the phishing. People were wiring money where it shouldn't have been going, right? And so that drove that. So what we saw was a reaction in the marketplace that drove premiums up dramatically, really due to that. And terms and conditions really tightened up. So, if you were a manufacturer, you started to get non-renewed because they were so afraid of the ransomware that was going to shut down your machinery. So anyway, as you look at this, and just to think about it, leading up to this, it was the Wild West. A lot of entrants. Everybody was going to make a lot of money with cyber insurance. Terms and conditions were broad. Pricing was cheap or inadequate, I like to call it. And so then you get into here where this is definitely where everything started to firm up. And if you had cyber through this, you probably saw a pretty significant increase as a result. And maybe you had to take sublimits as well. And then now we've had a landing ground where everything seems to be getting at least calmed down a little bit. So if you go to the next slide here, Matt. So we've calmed down a little bit and terms and conditions have improved. So I think what you should be seeing if you have your insurance policy is there should be more options out there for you. And I'll but there's a caveat to that, which I'll talk about in a minute. But you can get higher limits now too. And so you should be asking, if you carry a policy today, as you go to comes up for renewal or whatever, you start talking about, hey, what can we do if you're interested to increase your limits? Underwriting appetite has expanded because I think underwriters are starting to get more comfortable with the available controls that are out there now to kind of mitigate this. And then, I will say higher risk institutions, I'm going to say the more, if you're dealing with a lot of data, a lot of money, you're going to pay higher premiums, right? It's just the nature of the risk. You're more of a target. But municipalities, that's going to be a tough one still, just because there's not a lot of confidence in the controls that the munis have in place for mitigating risk. But, as we go to the next slide, you got to be aware of what you buy. And so this is the first thing we want to make sure that we educate folks on. And that is, this is not a standardized part of the insurance industry. So if you buy a general liability policy, you go from carrier to carrier, they're pretty much all the same. Maybe they throw in some additional wording, some additional coverages, that type of thing. But, it's a pretty mature line of business. Cyber is not. And if you think about really where a lot of the broadest coverage and terms are coming from, we actually place a lot of business overseas, like in the London markets, because you can get some different terms and conditions that maybe you can't get with the domestics markets here in the United States. And so just some things to look at, because I'm going to tell you, you could put up a Travelers GL policy, a CNA GL policy, and a Chubb GL policy, and they're all going to kind of read similar, use similar language, all that. Cyber, it will not. And so this is where you really have to pay attention to the fine print, because this is where it's different. And so a couple of things I'm just going to point out is what's happening is because they're getting more comfortable with underwriters are and what the controls need to be, but you're going to have some come in and put on some pretty restrictive exclusions. So you just have to make sure you understand that. If we can get them removed, we get them removed, but some of them are going to stick. Social engineering callback provisions. So this says we're going to give you a sublimit of $250,000, but to pay, you have to verify, you have to prove. If you lose $250,000 by wiring it because you were duped, you have to prove that you tried verifying it and that you verified it. So I kind of call that a little bit of the, well, if I verified it, then I probably wouldn't have done it, right? So you kind of got to look at that. I mean, you can still have a verification happen, and it's still you're out of your money. They kind of gave an example, the detective did, of the back and forth that happens. We have seen claims where it was discovered that people jumped in watching the conversation, right? They see the conversation coming from Craig and somebody that's in his accounting department, and then they jump in and pretend. And if it wasn't for being astute in terms of, hey, this person doesn't usually talk like that, we've had claims where people got duped just because they're watching you doing what you do. So always verify, always verify. The other thing that I kind of put out here is you just have to understand there's different ways that they're tracking information now. So meaning you'll see exclusions for website tracking, pixel tracking, and illegal surveillance. A lot of this has to do is because they want to try to stay out of the regulatory issues that could come up, because maybe there's a different way that you're tracking data or your provider is. So we just got to be careful of that. And so you really want to take a look when you're comparing coverages is what is it that you really have? And so just some developments and trends to watch, and all of these guys really touched on it. So we talked a little bit about data collection concerns. AI is really kind of turning this all upside down. It really is. I mean, what people can do these days through AI is unbelievable. And so we will see where the insurance industry goes with this. Again, we're kind of in a little uncharted territory. And because even if we had a lot of data going back since where comp was started, the problem is again, technology is transforming itself so dramatically. And so from that perspective, it's really going to be important that you educate your employees Awareness is going to be the number one combat, the number one weapon that you have to try to thwart a lot of this. Ransomware threats, that happens all the time, especially in the manufacturing world. So they'll get shut down, and if they're automated and they can't make their run to Chrysler, they're going to pay a heavy fine. So they're targeting specific industries with the ransomware because they know that'll paralyze them. And so that's a big piece of that. And then we already talked a little bit about BEC risks. So from that perspective, that's really kind of what's going on in the insurance world. I will say, from a affordability standpoint, it's still very affordable. It really is in the grand scheme of things. So depending on the size of your company, but shoot, even if you're a small company, if you're under 5 million in revenue, you can get a policy for $2,500 still. If you're under 10 million, you can get something for, $500 to $7,500, depending on what kind of industry you're in. So obviously the bigger you are, it's going to be more, but it's really affordable considering what the risk is. And I'll just leave you kind of with this is, so every 2 weeks we sit in a staff meeting, we go through our results, and we also talk about claims. And so I will tell you that there's at least one claim related to cyber every 2 weeks. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 3. And so it's just becoming more prevalent. And it could be big dollars and it could be small dollars. But anyway, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. So what we're going to do next is we kind of pre-made some questions. These are things that these guys get all the time. After we conclude this, we're going to open up the floor to you guys. So I'm sure you guys got some questions for these guys. So what are some steps that can be taken to prevent a business email compromise?
So again, password security, training for phishing, and just paying attention to emails. Don't be clicking on links. Most business email compromise come from either like one-offs or successful phishing attempts. Make sure if someone is asking for money to be redirected, call that person. Don't call the number that's in the email. Again, because bad actors are going to be putting their own phone number in there. Call them at a place Again, you can look at the signature blocks of the emails. A lot of times they may look different, or if you get, sometimes I may say sent from an iPhone. Do you know if that person has an iPhone? You really got to pay attention to the details of the email. It is very easy to spoof who it's coming to. Often you'll get a name. If you hit reply to, it actually has to show you where that email is going back to. So if it's questionable email, hit reply to. If it's different than who it came from, then that should throw some red flags. Other than that, just be cognizant of what you're doing. Make sure you're training everybody and pay attention. There's also some bad actors. If they gain access through phishing, they may actually get into your email account, and then they'll set up what's called email forwarding rules or deletion rules. And what they'll do, they'll search your inbox. Hey, I want, give me any email that has a topic of accounts payable or anything of that nature. And they'll say, okay, anything. Then they'll go drill down to, hey, this company's expecting a payment from this other company. Okay, I'm going to put a forwarding rule in that says any email from this gets automatically sent out, emailed to badguy@gmail.com, and then I want that email to go to deleted or some obscure folder within that inbox that they never go into. So now the bad actor can be directly in that email box sending emails back saying, hey, this is a trusted email account, I want payments to go here. If the company finds out, hey, my account's compromised, I'm going to reset the password, it doesn't matter. You still got that rule in that inbox that's sending them to a folder that you're not going to see, and they're going out to badguy@gmail.com. So then they can go pay $10 for a one-off typo squatted domain with one letter off you're not going to see, copy and paste the emails they're receiving in their Google account into that, and it just looks like a conversation is normal. So you really got to be paying attention to all the settings in your inbox as well.
Next question related to it. What should you do in the event of a business email compromise? So post Station, go.
So once you realize you have had a business email compromise, if money was lost, whoever sent the money needs to contact their bank and have that payment recalled immediately. You have 24 to 48 hours of a window that you can do that. After that, it's basically gone. We have a hard time getting it back. What usually happens with the money is it goes into a bank account that's in the U.S., and usually these are just individuals who are victim of some sort of other scam, like a romance scam or a work from home scam. They think they're working for this individual, just paying bills, or they think it's their lover and they're just moving money for them. So a lot of times they're unsuspecting victims as well. But once you recall the payment, make sure your email account's secure. Reset the password, check for any recovery accounts that may have been added. If you reset the password and bad guy put badguy@gmail.com as a recovery account, they may be able to get back in there. Enable two-factor, multi-factor authentication. Look for forwarding or deletion rules on any emails. And then I'd also have if you have the ability to, check logs to see if the logs in that email show any like foreign IP or unusual IP address in there that should not be there. And then you can also look at search term history. What were they targeting? That way you can notify other customers, and also, again, notify other customers that, hey, this may be happening. We don't want to change our payments.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Head to Jim. Jim, question. So where should a business start on its cybersecurity journey if they have limited resources and expertise?
I put a slide in here. Backup. I would say start with your backup. You have limited resources, limited expertise. Talk with a backup provider. Find out what they can do. Have an initial assessment done so you can see where your vulnerabilities may be, and then build your strategy and educate your users.
Next question for you, Jim. How can a business ensure that cybersecurity measures are continually improving and adapting to the new threats?
Again, it goes back to training. Make sure that you have some sort of a cybersecurity training platform policy in place, and make sure that your users are taking training annually. Test them, phish them, see if they're actually clicking on things, and make them retrain if they are.
Awesome. Drew, question for you. So for small organizations that say already partner with an MSP or have their own internal IT, how does Arctic Wolf's approach enhance the overall security efforts?
All right, that's a good one. So first things first is Arctic Wolf will never rip and replace what you currently have. We leverage your existing tool stack and the investments you've made there and just incorporate that into our platform. So that'd be for, having the additional internal IT team. You're also getting the additional resources. Now, utilizing Grit as an MSP, I like to phrase it as Arctic Wolf. You might have, locks on doors, locks on windows at your house. Arctic Wolf is almost the Brinks home security system, and Grit would be the police, fire, paramedics, whatever's needed. So we raise the alarms and just get Grit on the line immediately, and really they can handle the situation then.
Wonderful. All right. Given that many security solutions are starting to use artificial intelligence, which we've seen a lot of, what is Arctic Wolf's perspective on leveraging AI in cybersecurity, and how does it impact your approach?
Yep. So AI, it's a buzzword. Everybody's curious on how it's going to play and, how you're going to keep that secure. For Arctic Wolf, AI, it's not magic. It's really computational math. So what we do is we are able to develop our platform into a way where if we see an alert that takes place in a customer in Australia, and then we see the exact same alert that happens in California a week later, the way we implement AI is we train our platform to understand we've already resolved this alert. If we see it again in a different area, we don't need to worry about it. We've solved it. It creates efficiencies. But we do not hand everything off to AI, because that's when we think we start adding more onto the plate of the end user of really handling these alerts and doing the investigation. So we love AI. It does create efficiencies for us. However, Arctic Wolf is really built on the human touch. and having that outcome that we deliver for the customers.
Thank you, Drew. Over to Brian. So, Brian, the rise of number of cybersecurity claims, with them, what are the key factors are underwriters prioritizing when assessing a business cybersecurity posture?
Yeah, so it all comes down to making yourself insurable, right? And as I mentioned before, they're really digging in now in terms of what are you doing to control your risk. And so, the first is multi-factor authentication. And, I will say, even in today's world, there are still a number of businesses out there that haven't fully bought into that yet. It's interesting to me how the people get hung up with, and our firm was like this in the early days too, is, hey, it's going to take me a couple of extra steps, or it's going to be annoying to have to verify every time I want to get in. And I'm going to tell you, once you do it, you don't even notice it. But that's the number one thing that underwriters are looking for, first and foremost, is do you have that? Number two is just training. If there's one thing you take away, is create healthy paranoia in your firm about what could get on the web, email, that type of thing. So there needs to be employee training. I think you've heard almost everybody up here say it. Awareness is the number one thing. 90% of claims happen because a human did something wrong or messed up. And that's what gets people in. And it's as simple as clicking. And so clicking on something you shouldn't. So look, I get DocuSigns all the time that I'm not even expecting to come. So I have to call. I make sure I verify with the insurance company because they don't even tell you they're coming anymore. But I'm not going to click on it because I'm not sure what's going to take me. The final piece is the social engineering controls. And that's the phishing, right? So the wiring of money. Have some internal controls in place that there's always this verification going on. First, your policy's likely got a sublimit on it. So depending on how much you might wire, your policy may not cover it all anyway. But two, I think you've really got to get your folks in tune with, I'm going to check if I'm getting this from the CFO. I will call independently to make sure that's happening. Vendors, the same thing. Probably one of the biggest claims we had was the example you put up where they just changed the name everything looked legit, except they just changed the name in the email, just missed a letter, and they were out $300,000. So I'd say those are the big three things that underwriters look for.
Last question for you, Brian. With the evolving threat landscape, why should a business consider investing in cyber insurance, and what additional resources do these policies typically provide beyond financial coverage?
Right. I think the biggest win by having a policy is the resources, right? Yes, there's the peace of mind. Keep in mind that a cyber policy is really two parts. It's a third party. So if you create an event that causes a third party to have harm, right, all their data goes out because you were handling their data, and so it creates a situation where now they've got issues. But there's also the first party stuff, right? So that's you send out your own money by accident to a bad actor. So that being said, it's the resources. So when you really think about it, and for your cost, you're getting what I would say is the pre-breach and the post-breach resources. So I think you hear the detective talk about, legal comes into play, forensics comes into play. Your insurance company will provide all of that. And so when you think about if you go uninsured, you don't have a cyber policy, think about what you may have to do to go procure all of that if you don't have a contingency plan. Now your managed services provider will have that, but think about the cost, right? I'll give you just a basic example. This goes back to 2017, but one of my customers called me at 7 a.m. on a Friday morning, and all in a panic. It was a contractor, about $100 million, and they were locked down. They did not have anything in the cloud. They got a password. They locked down they couldn't get into their servers. And in their servers, they didn't stop work, but they lost all their accounts receivable. They couldn't get into it. And they were looking for 35,000 Bitcoin. Best thing they could have done is call VTC first, because you want to call, anytime you have a situation, call your claims, get them right off the bat. First thing that they did, the insurance company has said, sit tight. They got a team on it, and they started doing forensics, because what the insurance company is going to do is they're first going to go in and see if they can break it. If they can break it, then nobody pays, right? They can get out of it. They're also going to go in, post that breach, and figure out what else was taken, what's missing. And those things can be very expensive. And so this was just a really small situation in the grand scheme of things. But what's kind of funny is you've got kind of like the honest thief, I guess. But what was funny is, not funny, but interesting, was they came back and said, okay, we'll pay the $35,000. They said, it's going to be $50,000 Bitcoin, $50,000 in Bitcoin. So they paid it and they got freed up. Thank you. Have a nice day was the from Nigeria. They're very polite about it, and they moved on their way. The insurance company paid for the whole thing. But what's interesting, it was $50,000, but the forensics piece was twice that amount. So that whole claim was about $150,000. So if you think about what you would have to do as a business owner, and you're got to pay for all these services on top of that. To me, they were paying at the time, and this was pre-COVID, they were paying maybe $1,700 a year. Money well spent. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. At this time, want to take some questions from the audience. So who would like to start? Great.
Idea like how many you'd have to get actually prosecuted, understanding the law overseas that, if they go through a prosecution point, we can stop.
The only things we ever see are what hit the news. We partner with all the three-letter agencies, FBI, HSI, Secret Service. We partner with them, even the IRS. We basically, because they're all nation-state actors, we funnel all this information that we collect up to them, and it never comes back down to us because that's that secret, top secret level clearance. So they like, hey, the information, it worked out good, but we never know what good it did. So we don't really know either.
That's a good question. I will say, we haven't had too many denials. Okay. And on the liability side, I'm going to tell you on the liability side, it's a lot fewer claims happen, right? So you hear about the big ones where, Target got breached and everybody's credit card information is out there. Those happen for sure. But very, where you see the biggest influx is on the first party, which is the social engineering, the extortion, the ransomware, that type of thing. And I would say probably the biggest thing that happens is, we had a claim denied at first because what was interesting is an employee, somebody pretending to be an employee, emailed the HR department and said, hey, I need you to change my direct deposit. So the HR person, because they were using Paychex, sent it over to Paychex. So what happened is the initial response from the insurance company says, we're going to decline it because you didn't actually, Paychex is the one who released the money. Well, at the end of the day, after a lot of argument and so forth, they made and paid it because the policy was very vague about that. So you kind of see some denials based on interpretation. I do see denials happen because they said they did something, right? Customers will say, they'll fill out the application. They'll say, oh yeah, we've got MFA. Well, guess what happens? Claim happens. And that's a warranty app. And so what that means in the insurance business is the warranty, you put a warranty that this is all true, right? And so you'll see those type of claims happen. I anticipate we'll start to see more claims because people didn't verify appropriately. Now, again, I find that, kind of interesting, like, well, if you're verifying, you should be okay, right? But we do know that from the examples that you get these people that are in the flow of things, they can trick you anyway. And so I would say those are the biggest two. I think what you find most time isn't necessarily a denial. They don't have enough limits. And so if you think about it on the liability side, Well, you've got to comply. You've got not just the liability of whatever financial cost you may have caused your customer because you let their data go out. The other piece of it is, well, you've got all these notices that you're maybe required by law to put out, like breach costs. And so think about all the letters. If you were a Target customer, you probably got a letter, and think about how much that costs. And so sometimes it's just not having enough limits. And so, I haven't had any real issues with things being denied, but I do think, to your question, that's why we got to read the fine print, because there's going to be a lot more exclusions that may show up on that policy that may be able to get removed, but the first response is going to be, we're going to put some exclusions on there.
I'm not saying, come out below your weight.
Yes, I think so. I think, look, they're looking for insurability, right? And like anything, even if it's workers' compensation, it gets back to what are you doing about it to mitigate? And so the better you can portray, I shouldn't say portray, but the better you build your house, is going to be more advantageous. That underwriter will keep that down. They'll keep the prices down. And so you've got to talk about it. If you're somebody's got, we've got MFA on 80%, and we're not, our protocol isn't ironclad, they kind of see through that, right? And so you're going to pay a little bit higher price, but to keep your costs down, you have that in your control. You really do. Now, you're still going to be subject to market conditions, but you know what? It's going to make a difference between what you will pay and the guy next, down the street pays, because you've got all those controls. So working hand in hand, this helps definitely.
We do. They send them over to us, and on the IT side of things or the tech side of things that they may not understand or fully be able to fill them out 100%, we take care of it. Yeah, so we take care of those.
No, that's a great question. And I encourage all of our customers, because there's a lot of stuff in those apps that are very technical, and you may not know what it is. Don't guess. And so typically what we will do is we'll say, hey, just put me on the phone with your IT provider and we'll get most of this banged down. Then we'll review it with you, because it's getting very technical. And it's, like I said, insurance and they're two Greek languages. So.
Anybody else? Yes, Craig.
And where the chances that the backup get locked out as well.
Good question. And it depends on the type of backups you're doing. There are backups out there that are susceptible to ransomware. They can get encrypted with no problem. There are other products out there that are immutable. So the minute the backup's there, it's not touchable. The only thing you can do from it is restore. So depending on what your backup is and what platform you're using, you're either going to be ransomware protected from it or not. And a lot of times, some of those ones that are protected from ransomware will alert you that something is trying to encrypt it. So when it does happen, we can get some sort of an alert.
API, you would suggest accessing your backup, make sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, you should be testing your backups. Absolutely. At least annually.
Yeah. Keep them offline, offsite. Annually test them. We have had instances where a company was ransomwared. They had a good backup, and instead of making a copy of that backup, recovering from the copy, they tried to recover from the good backup they had. Well, they didn't clean their system, and now their only backup got ransomwared. So if you do get ransomwared, make a copy of the backup.
Paul? And so the evolution of the bad actors of the last 5 years, kind of the word on the space, what should we do with thought in the downtime? The basis here today, also, if these see that what do you think is digital?
The biggest thing that's going to be coming would be phishing emails generated by AI. That's going to take the hints away from you. You're not going to see the words kindly show up, or because a lot of times What we're seeing right now is these bad actors are in a foreign country and they're using something like Google Translate, which their language doesn't translate smoothly with the same meanings of words over to English. So if they start using AI, then that's going to make them that much harder to spot.
So what's nice when
Any other questions? Yes.
I think it's
Well, what we're after when we go to an incident, we're after the evidence of the crime. So we would want to get there before anybody else steps all over it. If you go to a murder scene, you're going to let someone else come in and clean up the house before we go in to gather that evidence. So ideally, we would like to be there on scene first to collect evidence. Again, what we're after is the vector of attack, how they got in. Again, that's foiable. And what we like to do, we whitewash it and try to get it out to everybody else in the industry. Hey, watch out for this. Watch out for these tactics, because this is what they're going to do. But when we send that out, we don't attribute it to everybody else. But a lot of times what happens when insurance gets involved, they activate their third parties, they activate their attorneys tell us to go pack sand, and then, yeah, we'll get with you. And then like 3 months later, we still have nothing. It's like, we're on the same team. We're trying to prevent others in the same industry from getting hit. Less payouts, less claims, but we're not getting the information we need. So in a ransomware incident, you should be leave computers on, pull the network cables, because our evidence is going to be located in RAM, which is the random access memory. And if you shut the computer off, it's gone. So we won't be able to get anything. So ransomware incidents, pull network connectivity, leave everything powered on. But ideally, we would like to get there first. And then even once third parties come in, if we do a forensic review of them, hey, look here. This would be a good spot to look at to start. But we can't come back there and just re-image all your computers and get you back up and running. We're there to collect RAM, collect an image of the drive, and then we'll run it back and analyze it.
There's a question over here.
I was just wondering what frequency is the RDP at installed?
A lot of them are happening on like a personal level with like cell phones, things like that, or laptops targeting elderly people. They're still doing pretending to be Microsoft or like eBay, or they're sending like phishing emails on a personal level, not like businesses. Most of those are ransomwares and business email compromises.
Where else we yeah. And box toss the security things, but they have AI
Well, I do think it just gets back to you just have to be suspicious about what you're getting into, right? And I think one of the things that we try to do, if we send out anything electronic signature, the first thing is I send an email ahead of time and I say, hey, be expecting this, or I'll give them a call, right? So many times we're getting DocuSign, or it doesn't even have to be Docu. There's other products out there. So many times we're getting those with a no, I have no idea. And we deal with contracts all the time from our carriers, and they've just gotten very complacent and they're just shipping it out, right? So I think your best practice on that is making that independent call. Say, what is this? You know, I think clicking on, you go in it. I call before if I see something, because you'll know who it's from or what company. So then I'll call my rep or whoever my contact says, is this legit? And then I put it kind of back on them to verify that for me. I think the other thing that we do, and GRIP provides this for us, is if we have a suspected phishing type of situation, like I've seen the QR code that come from Microsoft, so I forward that to them. It's, is this legit? So you can click phishing and they will check it out, right? And sometimes they'll, come back and say, yeah, it's fine, or nope, this is bad, so keep away. There's so much of that coming out and going back and forth. They're preying on the fact that you're busy and you're not paying attention. And so that, to me, is the only way you can kind of get around that, is just try to do your best to verify that. Sorry. I know. Again, healthy paranoia. You got to have it. So.
Yes.
You said it. You got tapped. You got anything to accommodate me? You do things that not.
I mean, if it's like a major crime involved, because they have monetary thresholds depending on their workload, depending on what it is. They may or may not get involved. If there's something big, we will contact them, say, hey, do you have an office working on this? Because how they work is if there's a ransomware group, the first time it's seen, whatever local office will take lead on that. So we've been reaching out to FBI offices in California or Florida or whoever, where we've been getting their information like, hey, you're the lead on this. Do you want this information? This company was just hit. This is what we're seeing. Do you want this? And if they say, yeah, we want that evidence, we'll encrypt it and send it to them. So we will work with them. Same thing with all the other 3-letter agencies, HSI, Secret Service.
Anybody else?
I will add, going back to the one-off typo squatted domains, that's where most BECs happen, is because of those. Just go register them. They can be anywhere from a penny to $10 to register a domain. And then that takes it right off the table. $100, $1,000, think how many domains you could register just to eliminate that vector.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to everybody that came out tonight. Feel free to stick around. We got a ton of food and drinks, so feel free to take part in that. Also, concluding today, we do, and the QR code is safe. You can scan that. We do have a page with all of the resources that everybody was presenting here today as well, so feel free to check that out. Again, thank you for coming. Appreciate it, and have a great rest of the night. Thank you.